What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Try Time Podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Callum.
And you join us for episode 87, the post-test match pod.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that we're on 87, to be fair, because when we came back, literally a little under a year, I think we're about a week off being 1 year of being fully back, and we've done, 50-odd episodes in that time. It's been good, to be fair. It's been good.
Been an emotional ride.
Yeah, from fixing LFC to having 2.5 hours of Johnny Lou. It's we've had a mix of everything, haven't we, really?
We've become book publishers.
Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff, to be fair, and there's still more to do. But yeah, it makes you think, really, when originally over a few years we only did 35 episodes, and then we've already done. This will be his 51st episode since we've come back.
Time flies when you're having fun, eh?
No, exactly. It's to another 50. But yeah, let's get into speaking about England demolishing Samoa by pretty much the identical score in both games.
Yeah, and it's very much kind of, I guess, what we had against Tonga, wasn't it, really? Where actually, despite everyone expecting a really close run test that might be a challenge, England have kind of stepped up and come the end of it, really not challenged that much.
Yeah, I mean, people will say Samoa are not at the best strength-wise, and I get that. But what it actually made me think is, last year, England wasn't at their strength because the standout player has been Herbie Farnworth. We didn't have him against Tonga. We didn't have Dom Young against Tonga. Do you know these sort of players? And, it's, people complain now that Bateman's in the team, which I disagree with, by the way. I think he's been absolutely fine these two games. But like last year, we had him and Whitehead, both aging players, and now we've got these young, exciting players. So we are a better team this year. I think, if anything, this makes Tonga look worse, which is hard to say when they've just beat the Kiwis. So it's international rugby. I feel like it's just hard to predict. It needs more games, I guess, which is the point. Because if someone's looking from the outside at these results, you're like, how does that even add up? Certain teams, but it's crazy.
But it adds up that England are better than the Kiwis.
Yeah, basically it makes England look shit up, essentially. But in terms of these other teams, because like Tonga,
is that really that much of a stretch? Because New Zealand have obviously been struggling and very patchy on form over the last few years. They've gone from being dumped out of the World Cup by Tonga to being dumped out of the Pacifics by Tonga, with the first win in years over Australia thrown in for good measure. Are England genuinely number 2 in the world right now?
I think based on how we're playing, because I mean, I'm going to go on to this, but this is the best England team, as in performance-wise, that I think we've had for a long time in terms of the rugby we play. We play a style of rugby that matches them, the teams from down under, I think, and we're executing it well over a couple of year period. We're a bit raw at the World Cup, obviously, but also at the World Cup, we were playing Wells being the halves, and it was just a bit, we were in between teams, really. We still had Tompkins at fullback, whereas I think now, you've got Wellsby. I'm not saying he's been amazing this series by any stretch, but he's a couple of years on. Williams is playing the best that I've ever seen him play. You've got a player like Harry Smith, who's really stepping up as well, coming in. And I think not only for next year in the Ashes, but 2 years' time at the World Cup, I think this team, if we keep this core going, I think we've really got a chance. I don't know why. I don't see why not. We're definitely the second best team in the world.
Well, I guess there's two problems with this. Number one, geography. Had the World Cup been in France, we'd probably got half a chance. Going down under, it's a completely different ball game.
But how good did we do in 2017?
Shit did we do against Papua New Guinea 2 years later?
No, that is true, yeah, and that is why International Rugby League is crazy, because them bad tours that we had, especially the GB tour down under, that it can be likened to like Tonga and Samoa these last couple of years coming over here. It's something I don't know whether it's travelling far after a tough season or people just not. It doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't matter. So players not really giving a shit. I don't know.
I guess on the flip side, you've got the World Cup. Samoa, game week 1, Newcastle, absolutely demolished by England.
Yeah,
they settle into the country and the routine and actually acclimatise. A month later at the Emirates, bang, they've just knocked England out of the World Cup to get to the first World Cup final in God knows how many years, maybe even ever.
Yeah, no, that is a good point, and maybe that is it. But also, it is easier to get up for I guess for the World Cup games anyway. But yeah, and did have a full sort of strength team. And I mean, speaking of that, a lot of talk's been on who's the best. Is Farnworth the best centre in the world? And obviously, the only other opposition I've seen is for Crichton, and I'm like, that's fair, right? I'm not going to argue too much with that. But is this the first time ever that the two best centres in the world are not, one of them is not Australian or playing for Australia? It's got to be. Like, do you know what I mean? That's the crazy. I was thinking that because when people say Farnworth's the best, I'm like, is that English people overreacting who don't watch much NRL? But realistically, he probably is up there in the prime of his career. He's up there, which is exciting as an England fan, especially when you're realistically going to have Dom Young up next to him on wing going forward. Like it's.
And then you've got an incredibly exciting, you'd like to hope, Wardle and then somebody partnership. I mean, I think the Marshall-Ashton debate will run on, particularly considering Ashton had a great test. Marshall comes in from an injured Dom Young and scores a very instinctive, natural try-scoring winger's effort in the corner. Neither of them have really settled the argument, I think, for why they should be clear number one, and that's because they've both played really well.
Oh no, it's a great sort of dilemma to have because, like, look at this. Dom Young didn't play at the weekend, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say you couldn't tell because Dom Young offers something that Marshall doesn't. Likewise, Marshall played really well and took his try amazingly. So I think if they're your three wingers going forward, I think you're in a good place. Anyway, that's for sure. So
then that's your wingers are sorted. You've got probably both your centres sorted if everyone's fit. I think we're yet to really see. We've been denied Wardle in an England shirt too long now because that's the obvious weak point in the backs.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Newman has done fine. He did fine last year, and he's done fine this year. But
he defensively gets very exposed.
Yeah, I definitely did at times. And when you play in Australia, you can't afford slip-ups like that. So I would prefer Wardle there. I think
the problem is you get exposed defensively, you don't get this attacking strike to offset it.
Yeah, he's not like, whereas like he's not a freak like Farnworth is. I mean, Farnworth's great defensively as well as going forward, but like Farnworth's attacking play is just, it's unreal, isn't it, really?
If Newman attacked like Farnworth but defended like he does, you probably let it slide and just accept your winger knows he's got to cover, your second rower can't give him too much free space. But you're getting that trade-off.
Yeah. No,
right now, you've got neither of them.
Yeah, no, that's fair, to be fair. But yeah, I think it's exciting times, really. And then, like you say, that'd be your backs. Realistically, whether anyone likes it or not, Wellesby's going to be the fullback unless someone bursts on and.
Unless somehow we're going to see a first-grade resurgence in Dally M winning Will Price performance, I think that's set.
Yeah, I think he's the only close person who could be number two, to be honest. And if he can break himself into that Newcastle side, then I think that'd be great, to be honest. I think because he'd be such a good player to have in the squad anyway, being able to cover in the halves as well. So it's exciting times to be an England fan. You've got these young players going over to Australia. Pierce Paul, some people don't love him. I know you're not the biggest fan, but he's gone down under and he's proved that he can play down there. And don't get me wrong, he wasn't amazing in that first test for England, but he's still a player that's going to improve going forward. He's still only a young lad.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about whether or not Price can break through. There is probably one very big problem in that, and he's called Callum Ponga.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's behind, arguably, well, probably not the best fullback, but he's one of the best fullbacks. He's been one of the best fullbacks in the NRL. And more than anything, Newcastle ain't benching a player that's on money that Ponga's on, let's be honest. So.
No, so unless you're going to somehow turn him into an halfback, that one settled. He ain't getting in.
But unless Price can make himself an obvious next choice once Ponga moves on, that's a conversation for a couple of years down the line, probably.
That's probably not this World Cup conversation, really.
No, unless he comes back home, which I could also see. But yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good spot, definitely in the backs, because you've got Smith and Williams are just great, and then you've obviously got Lewis as well, who offers something different. I don't think I'd be going with Lewis off the bench against Australia, though.
Absolutely. For me, that's one thing that hasn't worked this test.
Yeah, I think Lewis has come on at points in the games where the game's already gone. I'd like to see how we used him differently if it were a close game and how he would have impacted. But like at the weekend, like that game was gone by the time he came on, and he didn't really have too much to do. And don't get me wrong, he didn't put much of a step wrong. He tries to get stuck in the middle. He's not defensively. He doesn't have the defensive capabilities of a hooker. I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but it's different type of defending when you're in there with big boys, isn't it, really?
But that's always, I guess that's the weakest part of his game anyway, is the tackling, which, you know, he's a little halfback. You kind of expect that that's not his number one skill, which is fine if you're playing 6 or 7. When you're playing hooker, that's obviously a very different level of expectation. And in terms of what that, well, I mean, there's not much point discussing it. It's between Walker, Clark, and O'Neill, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind taking all 3, to be honest. I don't think he would do that. I think Clark would be really useful. I mean, he's not going anywhere because obviously we're speaking Ashes test now, not necessarily World Cup. But I think I don't understand why Walker's not played one of these. And I really like Clark, and I think Clark's great. And I honestly
think the stupid thing is you go for a 9-14 rotation and start one, bench the other.
But
I guess he wants to try and see what Lewis is offering. But I think based on that, the answer is not enough to warrant not playing 2 hookers.
No, I agree. That's what I mean. And I think, like, is Lewis ever gonna, like, Lewis is just one man of steel. And let's be honest, I don't think anyone outside of an OKR fan would want or think it's best for England if he started next to Williams or instead of Williams. Like, Smith's kicking game is like Smith, outside of Farnworth, Smith has been the next best player for me.
Well, I would arguably say you want him instead of Williams, which is never going to happen because he's the captain.
And he's shit.
And again, they've got very different games. I don't think, for me, Williams being asked to organise the play and being the more steadier halfback takes a lot out of his game because naturally he is, you know, very instinctive with the ball. He's got a good eye of the game. Smith, no real running threat in him whatsoever, but he can game manage really well. Lewis is very much the opposite of Smith. His game management is at times questionable, but his ability to pick a play out the box that nobody on his own team, let alone the opposition, are expecting, is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'd agree on that. Yeah, I think
it's like whoever's one strength is the other's weakness, and Williams slots nicely in the middle, just behind both of them.
Yeah, and Williams has got the experience as well. And like you look at what works for Wigan, Smith with French, Williams having the freedom that like French does. I'm not saying he's as good as Bevan French, but
I won't want him on wing.
Off the cuff play from Williams, I think is great, and his support play as well. He's always in and around ball, and the way this England side plays, as we've seen in these 2 tests against Samoa, is it's offloads, it's, you know, inside balls, trick plays, it's, you know, getting on defenders' weak shoulders and bursting through like Farnworth's done so many times. Like, and Williams is ideal for that because of his support plays like a fullback does. And I'm not saying Lewis don't do the same, but it just suits the way we play is perfect for Williams and Smith in the halves for me. I think. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I've got no desire to change unless we get another Greece situation. But actually, they're all called out from next World Cup, so that's not going to happen either.
Yeah. So, but against Australia in a 3-match test series, you know, if we're 2-0 down and we want to, I don't mind chucking. You know,
I think I say if we're 2-0 up, then we'll just be like, fuck it, we've already won.
Yeah, that'd be all right, wouldn't it? But I wouldn't mind, like, if we're getting 24 players for that sort of test series, I wouldn't mind, like, giving players like Lewis a game, or, you know, there's talk of Australia having warm-up games against teams like Wigan or against France and stuff whilst they're over and making it like a 4 or 5 week thing. Then let's do this. England should then be doing the same, like.
But is that the big difference here? Because you've got Samoa and Tonga who have got all this, well, we've not climatised, versus Australia, we're like, here we go, we're ready. watch us get spanked 50-0 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, if it'd be good if they came over and played like, I don't know, let's say week 1, they've over. They play France, England play Ireland, for example. They're probably the best of the 3. I'm thinking, Ireland, Wales, Scotland at the minute. Ireland, let's say, both spank them. Happens. Then week 2, England, Australia, first test. What goes over it once. Week 3, another then exhibition match. England play France, Australia play Ireland. In week 2, by the way, Ireland play France. So they're playing they're getting 3 games out of this, which one of them is going to be very competitive. Other 2's testing themselves. And then obviously you go week 4 and 5 of the last 2, England, Australia, Ashes test. Something like that would be perfect for me. Because you'd be more likely to go watch Australia batter Ireland than you would watch England play France, wouldn't you? Probably. I think
I'd rather get the buzz of having my own country win a game, given we're probably not gonna do. But
whilst a team like Australia are over here, do you know what I mean? I think you'd get good attendances for all of them, and why not have
make it more respectable? Double header it.
Yeah, double header it potentially at a decent sized stadium like 40-50k stadium, and you'll get people there for that sort of thing.
Let's be honest, you probably don't even need to go to that. Go for like a 30-35 and actually get demand behind it. So there's none of this whole, like we did to an extent. Oh, I don't really care if I can get tickets week before if I want them.
Yeah, which is what we did, and I mean Headingley did nearly sell out as well, to be fair. But still, that one until late going towards it. But yeah, I think even if that happened, not necessarily double header at Headingley, but
or also be smart about it. Like, where's there a large Australian population in the UK? London. So let's try and do something a bit radical. Let's bring Rugby League to Selhurst Park, for example.
Yeah. Well, I think
why not?
If you've got on test, let's say the first test is at, let's say, Ellen Road, right, on a Saturday.
Ellen Road, miserable choice of venue, but yes.
But it's like Ellen Road will be one because of the history behind it holding these sort of tests. And I think
it's just shit in it these days, but yeah.
I don't mind it, but
they have good brownies, but that's about where it ends.
You can utilise what I'm saying and plonk it anywhere. But for example, you've got England against Australia, the first test. After Australia played France, England played Ireland on a Saturday at Ellen Road. So on Friday night, you've got people travelling over for that. Friday night at Headingley, Ireland against France. These are obviously, it could be any teams here, but they're the teams I'm using on the Friday night. So you've got people over, go over for weekend, watch some rugby on Friday, which will be a decent game, let's be honest. And then Saturday.
Right, well, my question is going to be, are you going to pay, let's say, £25 additional to go watch that game? As somebody who is close enough to go to the test anyway, not making a weekend of it?
I don't know. That is a good question. I don't know.
Because if the answer to that is not an instant yes, that is why that plan will probably not quite work as you hope.
Yeah.
And because it doesn't grab you by the horns. If you're telling me that for my 30 quid or whatever, I can go and watch France versus Ireland as the curtain raiser to test one of England, Australia, I'm more likely to go in early and watch that than I am to buy a separate ticket. That's probably going to cost me more over the course of both games to then go to a second match, because that's also taking 2 days out of everyone's weekend.
No, that's true. It's true.
Just to play devil's advocate here, because I'm not sure I'd pay it.
Then the only thing I'd chuck in there is, like we've spoke about this at the weekend, realistically, the women are going to come over as well, aren't they?
I was just going to say, and then we've got to fit the England versus the Gillaroos in here.
And I think a triple header can work, just not at Ellen Road, to be honest. I think if you're doing like a triple header at somewhere like the Etihad, where you can dip in and out quite easily, I don't mind that as much.
Again, and this is the eternal problem, because to an extent we had it at Headingley as well. How do you actually get people in early doors? What order do you put the matches on? Because whether we like it or not, there's a lot less interest at the moment in going to watch a women's international than there is a men's international.
Yeah, but I think it would.
And I don't know if that was partly because obviously England-Wales was the really tantalising, nail-biting close scoreline of 82-0. That it because it was busy when it finished, but it wasn't busy when it started, which suggests you're not pulling the crowds in there. They may be going in earlier to the stands because it's on, but they'd rather sit and have a beer in the concourse than go watch the actual game.
Yeah, that's true. But then I think there would be a degree of that would be a bit different with it being Australia coming over. And, I said this to you before, I'd be more interested in watching Australia against England women, I think, because you're rooting for England. When you're rooting for England women against Wales, you know they're going to win and it's boring. When you root
for the World Cup, we went over to Wigan to watch England versus PNG in what was a women's double header.
Yeah.
Just remind me how much of the women's game had elapsed before we took our seats to that game.
I reckon we saw second half of that, didn't we? I think we were there pretty
about an hour.
Yeah, maybe, but which is still we did better than most to get.
Yeah, but the point being that once again we've been literally in Wigan. We've made a special effort to go to Wigan, which, let's face it, is not something anyone should take lightly, especially without the vaccinations.
Yeah.
And we've still not gone into the ground early to watch them.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we went to Mackey's instead, actually, I think, if I remember rightly.
We did indeed. In parts of Tesco miles away, which I've now found somewhere nearer to park next time, which I will not reveal so no one else has the idea.
Yeah. But no, I think it's definitely a conversation to be had about what would work best with the scheduling and stuff. But I think overall, don't just have them over here for the three matches. Have them over here for an extra couple of weeks playing, whether that's against like Wigan want to play them and get beat, or if we want to give the opportunity to one of the sort of neighbouring European emerging nations. And I think probably you're looking at France and Ireland are just the top two in my head, I think, based on results.
You got to throw the Dutch under bus.
If they want to give it a go, like, don't get me wrong, we can just make it more stuff's happening. Like this year, Ireland and Scotland have played and stuff, but it's not even announced enough. Like that'd be so good to have that tied in. And there are games that there's players that play in them are Super League Championship players. We want to see them games, but when you only find out they're happening a couple of days before because they're not.
I think also there's a real lack of ambition, also actually a duty of care here to certain people in broadcasting. Like, if I'm sat here and let's say Scotland and Wales are playing each other, let's not be stupid. Let's say a reasonable sized venue. I mean, Newport County for the Wales leg? That's not going to be a stupidly big stadium.
Yeah.
And let's actually get, the British Broadcasting Corporation televising a game between two British teams, not England and sod the rest like they love to do.
Even if it's just on a Red Button or BBC iPlayer or BBC Sport website, whatever you need it to be. Or even like a Sportsman.
I'm going to say, if they're not going to do it, bin them off and get the Sportsman on it, because they'll be honest, they do a better coverage and advertising the game anyway.
No, exactly. Something like that. I'd love
to. It's not worse than the BBC Two camera with no commentary, which I'd love to do in the early rounds of the Challenge Cup.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. That'll be coming up soon. But
well, it'll be basically December the way the Challenge Cup's going, which is not our segue then, because we can probably do a whole pod of planning the Ashes anyway.
Yeah,
and I've done such a perfect transition. I don't want to waste it.
Yeah, go on then.
So the Challenge Cup's changed again after, we all loved the fact that nobody paid any attention to the first 7 rounds. We've now got a bit more meaning. Super League are in from round 3 and will be visiting the opposition of a lower league team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good, obviously, and you for a fact by that round, there's only a couple of rounds before that, you're going to be getting some of the amateur teams who are probably going to get a Super League draw, which will be great. I mean, obviously, the fact the Super League teams are going to be seeded as well, so can't face each other, I think at that stage is really good. Don't get me wrong, it probably means we are going to end up with the last 16 similar as has been in the past, being 12 Super League teams plus a few Championship probably. But there's no wrong with that either. I think it's going to be good television opportunities if you've got Wigan going to, I don't know, we're going to say like a random one here, but like Siddle, for example. I'm going to say Egremont, but they're not putting themselves in there. But, or even like Wigan going and playing against Wigan St. Pat's or something like that. That'd just be a good turn up for books, wouldn't it?
Kells versus Saints.
Yeah, stuff like Leeds against Stanley, stuff like that. Like, it'd all be good. Good TV, good for the game, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, it was
Look, that Catalan travelling up to West Berlin would be a highlight of the year.
Yeah, I mean, because realistically, Toulouse are probably not going to put the name in that again, which is another other issue. But, I mean, yeah, as a Bradford fan, am I hoping to get a Super League team at that stage at Odsal? Probably not, because I think a nice cup run would be good. But
you don't fancy a chance against Hull FC? You've been bigging it up all year that you're better than them.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy whichever, because Challenge Cup is one of them where you're never going to win it. So it'll be nice to get a big payday out of it for the club and stuff. But then also, whenever there's anything that happens at Odsal, whether it's like a big game or anything on telly or any coverage of what's happened at Odsal, you just get shit on, to be honest, for round. Like on Twitter, if there's a picture of, or if a bloody whatever journalist puts on Twitter, I'm at Odsal today, and a picture at ground, it might not even look that bad, but you just know it's just, what a dump. Has that not been filled in yet? Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
It's a valid question, though.
No, yeah, but it's just boring at this point, like, really. So, yeah, I think that it's good for the Challenge Cup, good for the lower teams, but the impact that it seems to have had on the 1895, I am not a fan of, which is, I think it's just absolutely baffling.
I'll let you talk through the changes. Our resident lower league.
Apparently, the 1895, all we know so far, unless something's been announced, we are recording this as usual on a Monday night, so a couple of days.
Well, it always happens. They love a Wednesday morning announcement as this is going out. Like knobheads appointing Noble.
We'll come to that later on. So it's changed from the group phase, which we loved, didn't we? Let's be honest, it were good. It were good.
I mean, I went to none of the groups, so I don't really care. I've not got the same attachment to it. But go on.
No, but we loved it. As in, I think it added some. I loved it.
We added a video content. I'll give you that when we've got the infamous one with you running around on camera looking for a pen.
But it were interesting, and it added something where you've got to think before this happened, the 1895 was only contested between the last four Championship or League One clubs in the Challenge Cup. The four who made it the furthest. So teams barely even had a sniff at it, whereas it being a separate competition, for me, worked. Now, the reason why we are not in a group phase anymore is probably to do with Challenge Cup, but also because certain teams, such as Halifax, I've seen Gleddell's put it out, so this might not be correct, but Halifax, Widnes, and another couple, I think it was, basically they're not happy because the way it worked meant that they had to play 2 games away and have cited that this lost them money, right? So now,
which of course the problem that being a loss of money here impacts the IMG sheet, which then impacts promotion.
Yeah, yada yada yada. But I don't understand how that's lost them money for a start, because it's an extra game, right? Which, I mean, yeah, if you want to play, if you're paying players by the game, it obviously is extra. But
you've probably got staff that are paid by the game, even if that's not necessarily your playing staff.
No, which is fine. But also, you've not now now this new system don't guarantee you're at home. Like what happens if Halifax draw away to, let's say, Bradford beat them in the first round of the 1895. They've lost more money than having at least a guaranteed 2 teams.
No, because you've probably got a 50-50 ticket split because it's a random allocated draw. Whereas when you had that before, I suspect the money stayed at the lower league clubs.
I get that, but for me, like it also said on there, certain teams, like, and I'm not, this is what just it said, Dewsbury and Keighley, it were amazing for it. It made them a lot of money because they had Bradford coming to them, who obviously bring a lot. And so, which for Bradford, that's great that they're helping them out. And it is all based on regional. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't have the attendances for when Widnes went to West Wales or whatever. Like, I don't have them attendance numbers. I imagine they're not great.
But then that's probably the problem, isn't it? Because as much as the whole local idea really worked in terms of bringing in money-making derbies to boost this, I really don't think Newcastle versus York quite had the same gutsy ring to it. Likewise, Midlands didn't really get a competitive fixture out of this, being thrown in with, what was it, Doncaster and someone at Sheffield.
I get that, but I do also, I think it's a sad time for the sport when we're having to scrap this idea just because some lower teams. I think it's starting to signal the end of the lower teams. Some teams are, I think the gap is going to widen between some of the Championship League One teams and the sort of upper Championship teams this season. I think money in the sport's hard to come by, and the teams that don't necessarily have the consistent supporter base are going to, which Halifax and Widnes are two teams that I would say do. So it is a sad time when they're having to complain about that.
Then does that maybe question that actually, unless you have some tasty local derbies that you can get fans into, this is actually a problem? Because Cornwall didn't seem to take much persuading to pull out, and you have to look at what they would have pulled in attendance numbers and wonder if this is why.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it might not be anything to do with this as much. This might just be Glenhill fishing. It could be to do with the fact that, like we spoke about last week, there's more teams now that would potentially be in it, and it might just make more sense to do it as a knockout.
Because what did we say? We've got two more teams, haven't we? Definitely. I mean, Cornwall only said they were pulling out for a year, so as far as we know, they're back.
Yeah.
Goole are obviously newly in.
And then
you can't then have a group of three that have two teams in it. So that means you've got to try and drag Toulouse back by hook or by crook.
By up the door.
Then means you're going to then have to then tell them or somebody else they've now got to pay for 2 extra lots of travel, which isn't going to go down well.
Yeah. So.
And then it messes up your whole idea of Championship and League One things, because obviously we've had not only a shift of teams, but also a shift in numbers, with the Championship dropping to 13, League One growing, no reserve sides in the competition.
No, I mean, how many teams have we got now? So we got 2 back. Have we got 13 and a, what have we got now?
13 and a 10?
A 10?
No, 11.
It's got to be
11, because the idea is 12 and 12, isn't it?
Yeah. 13 and 11. So you got 24.
How did we have last year? We had 9 last year, didn't we?
9. Had 9 and 14, yeah.
Yeah, so we've obviously had 2 up, 3 down. So that's made it 10. Then Goole have rocked up to 11. So again, we've got the 2 to 3 up, 1 to 2 down thing.
So there's 24 teams in there.
Basically, yeah.
Which don't work in a normal knockout format either. That's my point. So it's not like you've got 16 teams, or it's either 16 or 32 it needs to be. So do you invite, I'm all for invite 8 of the amateur teams that want to do it, top 8 NCL or something. I'm for that if that needs to work. But I hope this isn't back to, or you have to be the top however many of the Challenge Cup to get into this, or something like that.
Well, or you go the other way and say, well, actually, how many do we think we've got? 24. Well, we haven't had because Toulouse won't play.
So 23.
So then I'm about to say, do you almost grant a bye to last year's winners? But that doesn't work because Wakefield aren't in it anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't work. That's what I mean.
The problem is they've got a stupid league structure.
I mean, I don't know how, and hopefully we know soon, because I would be gutted if it was something like, there's something related to Challenge Cup, because it should be separate. I mean, how stupid were it anyway that they said the last 4 championship teams get to be in the 1895 Cup, because they're the teams that are likely to, they've got the potential to actually already get to Wembley anyway. But then I don't think
what would happen in that fictional scenario where you've got what would have happened if last year Wakefield would have been in both finals? Then what do you do?
I mean, the closest that happened were Halifax, wasn't it? So the year we beat you, Fax then beat us in the
and then lost to St Helens in the semis.
In the semi, yeah. So they got all the way to the semi, and I don't think they even got. I think that killed them off, and they didn't even get to Wembley either. I don't think that year.
No, I agree. I think that's right.
So because they obviously won it the year before last. I hope they do something that's not related to Challenge Cup in any way, because it's I know we're looking forward to going to Keighley, going to Dewsbury potentially.
I mean, the obvious thing is you exempt the highest, however many. Because I mean, let's just sub Wakey for London as a direct swap at this point and grant London the status as effective competition winners. So you've got 23. You probably want to get down to 16.
So I've like.
Do you say the top 6 as your playoffs are automatically get a bye from the first round as a reward for making playoffs in the championship?
Yeah.
Then you've only got to get rid of 1, which default maybe you do that as your reigning champions, or if that is a team that's already made the playoffs, the next highest placed team.
To the top 7, yeah.
Which is a bit stupid.
Or from a fixture point of view, if you want to include someone into Challenge Cup, like the teams who have gone further in the Challenge Cup get. I don't know where the time frame would work on this, but like they say 7 teams who get through the Challenge Cup, although there might not be dead on 7. The 7 teams who make it the furthest in Challenge Cup get a bye because they've already got.
Which the problem with what I've just said is Toulouse are in the bloody playoffs and they're already out, so then you're down to the top 8.
Yeah.
So at this point, you've got half the bloody championship missing.
Maybe you just do a League One preliminary round, and how many would that leave us with? So there's 10 in there, is there?
It's 11.
11. Oh God.
So the only way is to probably give buys to the best performing teams.
Yeah, or to include some amateur teams, which I won't be against.
Then I guess you come back to again, how do you decide? Which if only 8 of the NCL want to take part, like have some elect to not be in the Challenge Cup, then that's easy. If 9 of them want to take part, you've then got another problem. And then it's like, right, you're all dragged in whether you like it or not, because we now have to span it to 32.
Yeah. So it's a bit of it's a tricky one for them to navigate, but they created the cup, so and I like the cup because I think it adds something extra, but it's just been too overcomplicated.
It's also the problem, again, like we're saying about the Australia teams, how the hell would you schedule that? Because last year looked tragic. It was a behind the sticks of Wakefield fans to about 4 people. It was awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. The whole thing's an absolute nap because, like, the start in the championship back to a normal earlier start than later, but the championship's lost 2 rounds. Or yeah, I'm right. Lost a team. It's lost 2 rounds. So it's
because you've dropped. Well, have you lost 1? You've lost 1 this year.
We lost 1.
But obviously, you're gonna have bye weeks in the season.
Yeah, but we've gone from having 20. How many games do we have last year? 26.
We've gone from 14 teams to 13.
So we've gone from having 26.
Yeah, you've lost home and away, haven't you? So yeah, you've lost
2 rounds.
Games. Yeah.
So how does that? Like already we've got less. So there's gaps for it because we're playing less bloody games. What sort of professional league? 22 league. Like how does Super League get bloody loop fixtures and Championship done?
Because nobody wants loop fixtures because they're utterly shit.
No, I agree with you, but it's just, or at least doing it more expansive 8 system that'd create more of a postseason, whether it's promotion, relegation, or whatever.
And I don't know if this is the grand IMG plan that eventually you're going to have 8 category A teams or whatever, or we're going to see a return to the 8s once everyone reaches a certain grade criteria that they're not a sport embarrassment anymore, or quite what the deal is. Because that would then work, having 12, 12, 12, if you then go back into 8s.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to close that gap still on the pitch as well as off of it. But then what's the point of the gradings? Because they're then only allowed up if you've got a certain point. Yeah. Right? It's weird.
Yeah, we're going to have to find out. I mean, the 1895, I just hope it don't get swept to one side, to be honest, because I think it's a cup that it gives lower teams a chance to get to Wembley, and Bradford are probably favourites for it this year.
There is also the big problem, like you say, though, of what actually do you do at that stage? Because do you keep it at Wembley, knowing that hardly anyone's going to be there, and obviously the big push is to put the women on first rather than Championship, because that's obviously what's on the agenda.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you your TV time on the BBC, which for the sport as a whole, it's probably right that they play to that and use that marketing while it's there.
No, I get that, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't too bad because obviously you had the free on Super League Plus, but it's great at getting people who already watch rugby and would probably want to watch that game anyway. That doesn't bring anyone new in.
No, true.
But I don't know how you do that. And also, do you really want to put an empty stadium on national TV? But then you don't want to take it away from Wembley because the whole point is that the lower league clubs get a shot at playing at Wembley.
Yeah, I honestly don't. Yeah, I think you just got to keep it how it is and just accept that you're not going to get many there. Especially not this year anyway, because like obviously last year you had Wake, you obviously took a bunch, and don't get me wrong, if Bradford got there, we'd take a bunch. But you know,
yeah, but let's say you get drawn away to Widnes in round one, which is basically cup over for you before it's even begun, or York away, and you end up in a situation where, let's say, I don't know, let's pick two teams out. We've got, who do I want in the championship this year? Let's pick Sheffield. Get there again.
Yeah.
And they're up against Oldham, who've shocked the world to get there in the first season, or Doncaster.
Yeah.
That's going to be dead. There'll be like 2,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would be a derby as well. That would be a right
embarrassing.
No, that's what I mean. Whereas, I don't know how you get people to stick around, but after your team just lost Challenge Cup final, you're probably not fancying watching any more rugby. And it's more because people go home as well. People have got trained to get home or whatever. Like, Wembley's not the most accessible place. It's not the easiest place.
Which again comes down to probably my opinion that actually Wembley's not the right place for the sport anymore. But
the Emirates would be better.
But it wouldn't though, because you've still got the same problem if nobody can get in and out of London.
No, if you're keeping it in London, though, that is the most easy stadium to access. So, like, it's a 5-minute tube from King's Cross, and you're there. Like, compared with Tottenham.
Yes, but you've also got to think. Yeah, but you're thinking of this of what's easy for you.
Go on then.
Theoretically, you want to get people from elsewhere in the country, which I'm not. Obviously, Euston's pretty straightforward because you're one stop over. Albeit you've got all the same traffic funneling the same way, but anyway. If you're coming from any other direction, which if you want to make this a national sport, you're going to want to get people coming from, it's a bugger.
Do you think, though? Because you've got to think, from Manchester and from like Leeds and Yorkshire and York and even up to Newcastle, obviously all comes down, funnels down at King's Cross. Like, I know you want to get other people there, but it's no worse than easier than Wembley, though, is it? It's no worse than Wembley. Sorry, like I'm not saying we do move it. I think just keep it at Wembley for me.
It's not, but you still. It helps because obviously, if that game's finishing about, let's say, 8 o'clock and the last train's at 10, you're going a lot less distance in 2 hours. You're not having to leave early or book extra hotel. But that's the problem, isn't it? Because the trains cost you about £700 to book. The hotels are that again. And if you sat there in the championship with potentially a Toulouse away to pay for, which is probably cheaper than going to Wembley.
Yeah.
Is it actually affordable? Which is an entirely different question altogether. But
yeah, I don't think there's any way you can do it and get it right because
the answer is to not use Wembley, but then you get accused of just keeping it in the 62 corridor and not trying to grow the game.
Yeah, like you have Bradford against Sheffield at a neutral venue. Like, what's the point? What venue?
Yeah, you need something else with it because otherwise,
like it's just a pointless game.
Yeah, you couldn't put the 1895 as like a standalone competition, even in let's use their favourite venue for everything of Ellen Road, even though it's shit.
Oh, that'd be way too big, yeah.
Like, that'd just be that'd be horrible.
Yeah, I don't even know what you'd potentially use around here, really. Like, York could probably be what they'd use, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because they did Summer Bash there, even though it was a York home game. Go back to Blackpool, there you go. Trade on the nostalgia and do the 1895 as like the new bash on the beach.
But I mean, anyway, we're speaking Championship. It'd be rude not to speak about Brian Noble being announced. Obviously, we announced like the day after we recorded pod last week.
Well, I'm slightly concerned because I thought we'd gone forward and had been doing this podcast. Now it feels like we're back in primary school again. Is this 2002?
If we have the same success as we did back then, I'm happy, mate. That's all.
Oh, I've got 2 more Bradford going bus things to look forward to now. Here come the buckets again.
Yeah, but before that, early season predictions. Do Bradford lose a game in 2025?
Yes.
Because we have to go away to Widnes and away to York. So yeah, that is nailed.
I can't wait for the entire left side however to just run through Wacker Blake.
I mean, Wacker Blake is not announced as of right now, and I'm kind of hoping it doesn't happen. I think
I'm hedging my bets because it will be announced before this goes out if we say anything that it's not happened.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, Bradford looking as, I mean, favourites, which is good. And I've said this past season that we are building in the right direction on and off the pitch. But yeah, it's going to be a good season. Other teams have recruited well as well. I'm just glad that we seem to be going in the right direction.
I'm not convinced by your coaching choice, but time will tell.
I get it though, because obviously time will tell. Like, I ain't seen Noble coach for years, as no one has. But in terms of the fact that he's assembled the squad essentially, like, it makes sense. Like, I'd rather have him in a settled squad rather than have like Lingard come in and not like Australian people and decide to tell them what the fuck.
I don't think he's bloody xenophobic towards Australians.
You know what I mean, though, don't you? Like, it might not like players such.
I think the better way to say that is come in and not like the way some of our highest earners play rugby and don't fit in his tactical setup. Yeah, not like hates foreigners.
Like Ockenbaugh and Pellier, you just know that the personalities that obviously it didn't work out at LFC, and they seem to have found the right environment here. You don't want a coach to come in and that be unsettled, and then you've suddenly got these players earning big money that you can't get rid of, or you are having to get rid of, because we don't, as fans, you don't want to see them go, and then the coach is going to always never have the full, satisfaction of the fans, I guess. Whereas you just know that Bulls fans never had that connection to O'Carroll because he just never clapped the fans after a game. You just know Noble's going to do that, don't you?
Oh, don't get Harry started on Eamon.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be, Eamon's a separate. So, but I'm happy with it, and club's going in the right direction. We've signed good players.
I think the big worry is you look at a lot of the coaches from that era and around then. You've got McDermott, who's been out of work for donkey's years because he's failed everywhere in the modern era. You've got Keir, who's probably now a bit past his sell-by date.
Well, he's retired from club, and he just does Wales now.
Yes, and that's probably because his tactics are a bit dinosaurish now. And he'll probably be the first to admit that he's not he's on the modern coaching methods and the way rugby is today. He's very old school. Are you potentially going to head the same direction? Are we in 5 drives and a kick territory here?
No, I think we've got a team that could play that well, to be honest, as well.
Are you telling me that Franklin Pellier can do 5 drives a set and just get you there on his own?
You tell me, mate. You got first drive, you've got Ockenbaugh. Second drive. I can
probably guess what you're going to say, actually. What you'll probably do is you'll do Tafuad on the first. You'll then probably send Pele in for 1 or 2. Shove Bayliss and Skirt on and kick it to Ockenbaugh in the corner. That's your idea of rugby league.
And it'll work, mate. At that level, it probably will work. But no, because I think...
And then you'll get Warrington in Challenge Cup and they'll just dance around you like there's no tomorrow.
But anyway, that's it's exciting times for Bradford anyway.
For everyone, I think, because either you're going to be excited and play really well, or we're all going to enjoy watching the implosion part 2.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to come top or anything like that. I think top 2 would be what I'd be looking for. And obviously, I would joke.
You're the favourites for the last 6 weeks.
I think we probably will be the favourites on the bookies and stuff, but I'm not saying we will finish first. I think that it'll be close. I can't see there being a team run away with it, which is good.
Batley away should be fun this year.
Yeah, the games like that are always going to catch you, aren't they? Like, I feel like we're more likely to lose away at bloody Batley than we are away at
It's Barrow for you. You never win at Barrow.
Barrow's a tough one. they're all tough, mate. Like, we don't know what, like, going to Oldham's going to be tough. You know, anyway, they're all tough, mate.
Like, down to London.
London, yeah, London will give us a game, you know, even away.
Energy Hopes there a couple of years back.
Feather away is tough to win at. Sheffield away.
York, you love.
York away is not. I'm not even bothering going this year.
Are we not going this year?
No, I'm going to have to go because it's such a good away day, to be honest. But we always get fucking beat. It's
that's why it's a good away day.
Yeah, it's kind of no expectations for that one anymore. And it always happens start of season. It's always early doors in season, which just makes it 10 times worse. But yeah, that's all. I don't want to speak on Bradford too much because I know no one likes Bradford at the minute.
Correct. And on that revelation, that's probably where we end it.
Yeah, been a decent episode. And next week, we don't know what we're going to be speaking about. Any suggestions, like we always say, let us know because we're getting into off-season now. So,
so this is where you watch our ever increasingly desperate attempts to try and make engaging content.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We'll have the big Christmas quiz. We'll have the end of season awards, which I'm not sure exactly when they'll be coming out. To be fair, probably
I haven't on honoured them yet. I need some more puns, to be honest.
We're probably looking at December for them too. And yeah, in the meantime, hopefully we'll get some guests on as well, which will be good. And yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well.
Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.